Hello and welcome to another edition of the Jumps Racing Podcast here in association with horseracing.net. Don't forget to visit their website all the time for all the latest information from the world of horse racing. And somebody you might see on there contributing with different articles and a variety of content also is the one who hosts this podcast with me, and that is Nick Sedder. Nick, as always, great to see you. And the crazy thing about it now is that we spoke about Cheltenham, I think, on the very first episode, and now it's like literally how many weeks away are we now from Cheltenham? It's not that long, is it?
Yeah, good evening, Bobby. 6 weeks, I think. We've gone past the 50-day barrier, so we're well and truly in Cheltenham fever now. And you'd imagine, it's going to just creep up on us before we know where we are. It already feels like Cheltenham's coming, and we're going to wake up and it'll be Cheltenham. So we're nearly there now.
We certainly are indeed. Very excited times ahead. Looking forward to the Cheltenham Festival. Now, what I would say is that if we look back at all the big races over the weekend, this would be a 4-hour podcast. So obviously we don't want that. So we're just going to take a brief summary of what we saw over the weekend. And we'll start first, Nick, with what we did see at the mentioned Cheltenham there. Santini in the Cotswold Chase. Is this horse now a Cheltenham Gold Cup contender, in your opinion?
I think he's got to be, hasn't he? They build the Cotswold Chase as a trial for the Cheltenham Gold Cup. It is pretty much run over the same distance as the Gold Cup over the same course. Not quite. It's about a furlong shorter than the Cheltenham Gold Cup. But there was a bona fide Cheltenham Gold Cup horse in there in Bristol de Mai who really is becoming a barometer for the staying chases at Grade 1 level, because Lost in Translation proved his credentials by defeating him at Haydock. And Santini, you'd think, proved his credentials by beating him at Cheltenham. It was a real ding-dong battle, which is something we've really come to get used to in the Cotswold Chase. I think back to the late, great Many Clouds and Thistlecrack dueling. Last year's race with Frodon was another classic. So, yeah, and I think you have to consider him as a real, not an outsider, as a real contender for the race now, because, for big parts of the race, you maybe didn't feel like he was ever going to get there. But I think that's, to his credit, really. He made a bad mistake 2 out and then rallied. Bristol de Mai was in front after the last, and Santini rallied. And, watching the race live, I thought this is going to be a real ding-dong slog to the line. So I think it's to Santini's credit that he was able to put Bristol de Mai to bed in the way he did. He rolled away and won by 3 or 4 lengths in the end. So, I think perhaps unfairly, he's got the reputation of being a bit of a boat or a slow coach, which perhaps on the evidence of what we saw and the way that he had that gear change in the last few strides is perhaps unfair. And you know what? He's got proven. He won this on Saturday. He was a brilliant second in the RSA Chase form, which is working out pretty well. Delta Work has won the Savills, and then a few horses who were also Rans have gone on to have very good seasons this year. The World's End, Topville Ben. So that's looking pretty strong. And if you look at the Cheltenham market, he's currently joint 6-1 second favourite at the time of recording, alongside Ken Boy. Albion Photos 4s, Lost in Translation is 6s as well. That's probably about right.
Yeah, and I'd agree with you there. And I think for people saying that he's not a Gold Cup contender, I think they need to watch the race again. And as you said, the way he won the race as well, the way he sawed off Bristol de Mai, definitely puts him, in my opinion, your opinion as well, you just said it, that he is an absolute leading contender. And I think he's going there with a great chance as well. Paisley Park, he just cannot stop winning, can he? Let's be honest. Paisley Park cannot stop winning. He got the job done there in the Cleeve. Can anybody stop Paisley Park, do you think?
I think the first point to make is, people on podcasts, pundits, they love saying when they're right, when they predict a result. And I think it's only fair to say when you're wrong as well, because last week I made a compelling case for if the cap fits and a real case that I thought that Paisley Park was vulnerable. Well, the answer was an emphatic no, wasn't it? He was far from vulnerable. It was
You're eating humble pie, aren't you, Nick?
Yeah, big slice of humble pie, but crikey. we're going to run out of superlatives for him very soon. The undisputed champion of this division now, and he heads to Cheltenham as the rightful odds-on favourite. Maybe at first glance you'd think that the 10 to 11 on offer, 5 to 4 on offer, is probably a bit generous, really. That's probably because of the second favourite, Beanie's des Dieux, however you pronounce it. Whether she goes, I think that'll probably hinge on where Honeysuckle goes. So that's an interesting subplot. But I mean, he's running out of people to beat him now, isn't he? Of horses to beat him. I think the interesting thing with Paisley Park, and some horses are like this, is that he gives that aura of potentially being vulnerable because he only ever seems to do enough in his races. And it was the case again on Saturday. He does what's asked of him and what's put in front of him. He never really annihilates a field. No. So sometimes you get the feeling that he is vulnerable. But, those behind him, some of them didn't run to form. I was really disappointed with If the Cap Fits. I don't think that was his performance. He ran a bit free. Harry Fry came out and said he needs to settle better in his races. He's only had 2 tries over 3 miles. So hopefully on more spring ground, he would get closer next time around. But you look at the field and, it's Paisley Park 5 to 4 on. You'd imagine he'd be shorter, more like 2s on if Beanie des Dieux doesn't run. Somerville Boys 10 to 1. He's shaped really well in his first try over 3 miles. City Island, he's chasing at the moment. Champ is chasing at the moment. Lorena the same. And you'd think with Lorena as well that if she was going to revert to hurdles, she'd go to the mares. So you start to really wonder where the challenges are going to come from here. And, it's nice in an era where there seems to be so many Irish bankers for the Cheltenham Festival. Surely now we have a British trained banker this time around.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Paisley Park would have to be, our UK banker of the entire festival. If we just have a look as well at what we saw at Doncaster, we'll talk about the Superstar Mare very shortly in our eye-catching bit of the podcast. But it was the SkyBet Chase. OK Corral got the job done. Is he now a leading contender? We talk about, obviously, with Santini, a leading contender for the Gold Cup. Is OK Corral a leading contender for the Grand National now?
I think he's certainly a contender. We talked about this race last week and that it can be a good indicator for the Grand National. OK Corral has long had this reputation of being a staying chaser to follow. He was sent off for the National Hunt Chase at a pretty short price last year. I think he was second favourite, wasn't he?
I believe so.
So, this probably wasn't the strongest staying handicap we'll see all season. The fact that he was so close, OK Corral, to Finger on the Switch, who's only rated 132 officially, probably dampens the form a bit, but it was a great battle. He showed loads of resolution. We know he'll likely stay the trip. So, yeah, I think to consider him a contender. I was slightly surprised that he's still as big as 40 to 1 for the National. I think, there is a little bit of juice in that, but if you were making a case against him, I think the obvious thing is his weight he's going to have to carry in the National, because he won on Saturday off 146, and you'd imagine that he's going to go up quite a bit for this, into the early 150s at the very least, maybe even £10. I don't know what you think, Bobby, but you said off camera before we started recording that Kimberlite Candy was the number one JP McManus horse, and I do think I agree with you, but it adds more spice to a race that's really building in complexion by the week.
He likes to have a few in the field, doesn't he? Because we were talking about, obviously how, JP's gone on in the Grand National. Of course, Don't Push It is the highlight, the first Grand National as well for Sir A.P. McCoy. And then we look back through the years. You've got your likes of Clan Royal. He was well fancied. That was in the number 6 Valverde Hedge Hunter, middle of the noughties. Sunny Hill Boy, second in that fantastic photo finish with Neptune Collange. Butler's Cabin as well. He actually fell. I think he fell at Beechers. I think he went on favourite. He fell at Beechers. I think he won the Irish Grand National as well. Annabelle Fly, another one to chuck into the mix as well. So he does like to have quite a few, and he's done okay. He's done well in in the national. But out of all the horses, what you might think, right, which ones are you going to put in the Grand National? You would have to say that with what we've seen from Kimberlite Candy this year, that one is definitely ticking the boxes for him to go and run a really, really big race in the Grand National. So I'd say Kimberlite Candy would be the main hope for JP McManus, who I think, and I'll say this closer to time, I think he's got an outstanding chance. I really do. But yeah, I think OK Corral will be thereabouts. Another one representing the famous JP McManus Silks in the Grand National for sure.
Yeah, one thing I will say, Bobby, is with the Grand National, this is how I feel anyway. I always feel like because it's such a big race, your traditional Grand National contender has to build up to the National. So they're always coming to the peak. And we say this every week. We've said it about countless horses, that they always seem to be better served by building up to something. And I just got the feeling with OK Corral that he peaked for the season on Saturday. And, you know, there's the likes of, I mean, we've said LeBroy umpteen times, but you get the feeling that there's more to come from him. And I know Kimberlite Candy won at Warwick. You could say that that's his peak. But I think there's more to come from him as well, considering his age, the fact that he still only had a handful of starts over fences. So, yeah, I think that's the big blot in OK Corral's copy. But he's on the road now to Aintree. And, you know, it's no mean feat winning a race like that at Doncaster.
I think as well, what we need to mention, and people will be aware of this, is that the Grand National is not what it was. And what I mean by that is that it's getting harder and harder to get in the Grand National now. And if you look at the quality, what's running in the National, it's very, very different to what was running in the race years ago. And a good example is that Phil Smith, no longer the handicapper. He's now stepped aside, retired from it all. But he said to me once in an interview that the very first Grand National he did when he was, you know, sorting out all the weights and everything was the 1999 Grand National when Bobby Joe won it. And he said to me, with how the race is now, and this was a couple of years ago, he says Bobby Joe wouldn't have even got in the Grand National now. And bearing in mind, you know, 21 years ago, he won the race. You know what I mean? So it just proves, you know, how tough and hard and, you know, and the quality, what's in there now. In my opinion, it's a completely different ball game to what we were used to growing up, watch it on the BBC, you know, seeing the horses win it, you know, over the 90s, you know, your party politics, your mini homers, your rough quests, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, Summit was a phenomenal horse who won. I think he won the Welsh National, the Scottish National, the Grand National. He just won it all, you know what I mean? But now it's a different ball game. So if you're thinking that OK Corral ran his heart out and, you know, that was his race, that was his national, you know, on Saturday, then surely now, well, we say it should be a contender. Sure, there's huge question marks there with the quality of the race that it is now.
Definitely. And I think that the closing point is, I mean, so with considering the races, the horses that are going to be in the race this year, I imagine Tiger Roll will get top weight because of who he is and what he's done. But it's no foregone conclusion because Native River could be in there. He's rated very similarly officially to Tiger Roll. Topville Ben is in the 160s now after winning the Roland Merrick. Vintage Clouds, when he's not quite in the same stratosphere at the moment, but it just goes to show he won last week at Haydock. He got pummeled £11 by the handicapper for winning that, the Peter Marsh. He's now in the mid 150s. So it no longer is the race where you can get in off the likes of 138, 137, you know, win the North Yorkshire National at Catterick and you're in. You know, you really do have to be the calibre of a Hennessy winner, really, just to get in the National.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything, and I'm looking for. I'm going to the Grand National Weights Lunch in a few weeks' time, and I'm looking forward to seeing who gets what weight really, and obviously with the horses, what a potential turn up as well. I think it's going to be brilliant. Very much looking forward to see what weight certain horses will be carrying. Now, what we're going to do, Nick, we said this off camera for the podcast. Now we're going to look at eye catchers. No surprise that I'm going to go for Lady Buttons, who is an absolute superstar of a mare. You know, full credit to Phil Kirby and the whole of the team there, because it is absolutely brilliant. What they've done with her, she's absolutely phenomenal. It's great for Phil. It's great for the team. She's won that race for a second consecutive year on Town Moor, and I just wish I part owner. That's all I'm going to say. And have some great days out of the races with her anyway. What was your eye catcher then, Nick, over the weekend?
Well, I'm going to stay at Doncaster, which was perhaps easy to forget how good a card it is up there because of all the attention being on Cheltenham for Trials Day. And it was in the River Don Novices Hurdler Grade 2. It was Ramses de Tay. And you know what? It was really difficult not to be impressed with this. Now, it's one of the funny quirks of jumps racing that novice statuses can hang around on horses that you might expect it not to. And Ramses de Tay at first glance is an established staying chaser. He's come second in a Welsh Grand National, so you wouldn't think the word novice would apply to him in any shape or form, but you are a novice in a certain sphere until you win a race. So he began life in hurdles. Ramses de Tay didn't pick up a win and graduated to fences, so still eligible for these novice hurdle events, as we saw back at Cheltenham back in November, October time when he won on reappearance. We didn't think too much of it then, but he's since struggled over fences. He's come back into a novice hurdle, and you know what, he was still relatively unfancied in the betting, around about a 13-2 shot behind a well-regarded type in Champagne Well, but that form now looks really, really strong, because not only did he beat Champagne Well, he absolutely obliterated him. He won this race by 17 lengths or so, and he's very quickly becoming a really interesting type in this division, which is pretty unexpected. But it's just one of the quirks of the system, and his connections are in danger of really having it right off in this sort of company. Ed Quigley writes a column on our website, and he's just filed his copy, and he agrees with me that this one could prove to be overpriced. He's actually 33-1 at the time of recording for the Albert Bartlett. It would be no surprise come Thursday should his name be in there. And, I think it also proves something on Saturday, because a lot of us have sort of pigeonholed Ramses de Tay as a performer on more testing ground. This came on good to soft, so conditions aren't as much of a problem perhaps as we thought. And yeah, just very, very impressive. And you know what? We've got this experienced chaser turning up potentially in the Albert Bartlett, and he could have it off again.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see should he turn up in the Albert Bartlett at the Cheltenham Festival. Right then, we like to get people on for various different interviews. And over the weekend, Nick caught up with Jamie Moore to get the latest on Goshen, and also to have a general look ahead of the Cheltenham Festival of 2020.
Jamie, thanks for chatting to me. I thought we'd have a quick chat about the 2020 Cheltenham Festival, because it's not too far away now. And
no.
You're lucky enough to have a real good prospect in the Gary Moore yard in the form of Goshen. He's done really well so far.
Yeah, he's won his last 6 races now, 3 on the flat and then 3 over hurdles. And he's not just winning, he's killing horses. So hopefully he goes there with a good chance. He's been rubbing people up the wrong way with the way he jumps and that, but it doesn't really bother me too much. I think he's a good horse, so... but I've still got a lot of respect for all the opposition, so but hopefully we're going there with a nice chance, yeah.
How do you feel about the prospect of going back left-handed?
Yeah, I'm probably the only one that actually doesn't really bother, because mid-race he's okay, and then the last 7 furlongs we've only got to jump 2 hurdles, and it's only been over the last 2 hurdles that he's jumped right-handed, and the last hurdle's always up against the rail anyway, so effectively there's only 1 hurdle really that we might have to worry about. But it doesn't bother me, as long as the horse is fit and well, he'll go there with a good chance.
And we'll have a quick chat now about the Queen Mother Champion Chase as well, because you're lucky enough to have sat on a Champion Chaser in Sarah de Grugy, and there's 2 at the top of the market at the moment in Defi de Soy and Altior. Does Defi de Soy look the real deal to you?
He does. He looked tremendous the other day, and Undersoy, I know him from first-hand experience of having a few battles with him, and he's maybe not quite as good as he was, but he's still a very hard horse to pass. And Defi de Soul, he did it with ease. At the same time, I've ridden against Altior, and I always thought he was actually a better horse than Sprinter Sacra, riding against them, and so I've got huge respect for Altior. I mean, if I had to put my head on the block, Altior might have that little bit more class, but it's going to be a tremendous race. Hopefully they'll both get there fit and well, and I'm sure Mr. Henson will have Altior back to his best, and Mr. Hobbs' horses, they're running well now, and definitely it's going to be a tremendous race. It really, really is.
Yeah, what have you made of the Altior situation? It's been fascinating, hasn't it, so far, seeing him step up in trip?
Yeah, personally, I mean, I can't believe he did go up in trip. I know it's easy after the event, but I remember saying to Nico, like, just go for the Tingle Creek and win the Tingle Creek. I was amazed he went to Ascot first time out for a Grade 2 and over that distance. But because for me, I remember riding against him at Newbury, and the way he could quicken up from 3 out to the line, it was just phenomenal. But they tried it and it didn't work, so fair play to him for trying it, you know. But for me, he's probably the best at 2 miles.
I suppose this might be a silly question, but have you a horse for us to watch at the festival other than Goshen?
Not me personally, no. I mean, my dad's got another nice horse going there, Botox has, who's in a similar boat as Goshen, you know. But whether we'll have anything turn up for the handicaps, there might be something later on. But at the minute, no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
And last but not least, the Champion Hurdle is another one that looks wide open. The mare Epitaph, she's favourite at the moment. What have you made of her so far? She's
been very good, but the mares in Ireland look very good as well. Honeysuckle of Henry de Bromhead's and Benny de Durr. I think it's going to be a year for the mare or fillies or mares anyway. You know, I mean, yeah, it is definitely a wide open race, and I mean, people talk about Cheltenham now, but from first-hand experience of horses, I'd personally wait until March before really worrying about things too much. You know, it's a lot can change between now and Cheltenham.
What's your take on these really good mares in terms of where you would send them? Would you always be inclined to chuck them in something like the Champion Hurdle, or would you go for the mares?
I don't know, if they're that good, you'd probably go for the Champion Hurdle. I mean, I always feel a good mare is worth their weight in gold the way they try it. Just from watching them on the flat, when you see how good Trev was, how good Enable was, how good Zenyatta was, and they were all beating the Colts, and Colts are still full of testosterone and strong, and I mean, yeah, I always think a good mare is they're as good as any colt or gelding. You know, they're very tough, very tough.
Great to have Jamie Moore on the podcast, making his debut as well. And I have to say, Nick, that was a great interview from your good self.
Thank you. Yeah, great to chat to you, Jamie. Comes from a very talented family, doesn't he?
Yeah, it certainly does indeed. Of course, you know, Dad's a trainer. You know, brothers are jockeys, Ryan and Joshua Haley. Also an amateur jockey as well, and a very good presenter on Sky Sports Racing as well. Right then, we're getting this stage of the podcast now where we like to ask questions and we want to get some interaction from everybody watching us on YouTube, or maybe listen to us on the likes of SoundCloud and Apple Music, etc., etc. This is the question we've got for you this week. We want your answers. Should there be more British horses at the Dublin Festival? What is your opinion about that? It's a really good festival, plenty of prize money on offer. Should there be more British trained horses flying over or going over on the boat, whichever, and going for the great festival? What do you think, Nick? Should there be more horses?
Well, at first glance, the answer seems obvious to me, because you've got a 2-day festival where there's 2.1 million euros in prize money up for grabs. So the fact that, and I had a look earlier, and there are 5 horses and have that in. I'm doing speech marks, inverted graphics, there, inverted commas there, because 5 won't turn up. 5 English trained horses entered for the Dublin Racing Festival. I mean, it's a measly number. And you just wonder why. I mean, it is a relatively new thing. It's only been going for a handful of years, a couple of years. So maybe, you know, it takes a while to get used to this sort of thing. There's also the proximity of things like Festival Trials Day that was a week ago. We've got this very strange situation now where we have separate trials either side of the Irish Sea. But I mean, if you look at horses who are entered to go to the Dublin Festival, you've got Simply Ned in the Dublin Chase, who will probably run, and the Bagarra in the Irish Gold Cup, who'll probably take her chance. The other three, Monsieur Lecoq from Nick Williams, is in the Irish Champion Hurdle. Whether he goes is up for debate, possibly. Waiting Patiently is entered, but he is out for the season. And we spoke off camera about the Banner King Rebel Bobby. You reckon you spoke to Jamie Snowden, didn't you, about where he's going?
Yeah, more than likely, not a definite, but he may turn up for the Betfair Hurdle, which I believe is on the 8th of February this year. So he may head down to Berkshire and Newbury for the Betfair Hurdle. Don't quote me on that, but that's where he may turn up.
Yeah, so, I mean, that means that we've got a maximum of 3 English runners over 2 days of racing, 8 Grade 1 races up for grabs. And I will say that those 5 English horses I mentioned, they're only in the graded races. I didn't trawl through the handicaps. But you know what? The one thing I will say is it isn't something that's particularly trendy anyway for British trained runners to go abroad and take on these bigger prizes, maybe because they don't need to. But I mean, I thought off the top of my head what foreign meetings, and I'm putting Irish in the word foreign, that British trainers go en masse to, British trained horses go en masse to. And you know what? I really couldn't think of a lot. The Dubai World Cup sprung to mind. They're all in the flat as well. The Melbourne Cup, possibly. The Arc, certainly. The Breeders' Cup, and maybe the Irish Derby. But you think about Irish jumps racing, the likes of the Christmas Festival over Leopardstown, again, the Savills Chase, where there is just no British presence. A lot of prize money up for grabs. And it really isn't something that is trendy. And I just wonder, maybe it should be trendier. The prize money's attractive. Why are British trained horses not going over to these things? Is it just a convenience thing?
No, I think that's a fair point. And as you say, the prize money is exceptional as well. What do you say, over 2.1 million euros?
Yeah, 2.1 million euros. And it's not just in Ireland as well. The other thing I have noticed in recent years, and I do think Southern trainers, particularly on the flat, have cottoned on to this, is in France the prize money is very, very good as well, even over the jumps. And I just wonder if it's something that British trainers will start to pay serious attention to.
There's going to be a slight change in race times. I believe that this is a trial. And if we look at on Saturday at Musselburgh and also at Wetherby as well. So we'll start first with Musselburgh. These are the race times: 12:57, 1:31, 2:05, 2:40, 3:15, 3:52, and 4:26. If you look at Wetherby, 1:03, 1:38, 2:12, 2:45, 3:23, 3:58, and 4:33. So, what do you think these race times, what they're bringing in? Because I suppose straight away, that's like greyhound racing times, isn't there? You get the 2:12 from Bellevue, you get the 2:27 at Sheffield, for example. So what do you think to these race times?
Well, I don't know how pumped I am for the 12:57 at Musselburgh. It doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? But I suppose racing can be criticised at times, perhaps for not embracing change or not being open to change, but it certainly is in this respect. And these are the sort of problems that arised, rightly or wrongly, last year through the racing TV having an awful lot of the rights these days. And it normally comes to a head when there's a high-profile Irish meeting and several English meetings. So the one that springs to mind was when the Peterborough Chase at Huntingdon clashed with the John Durkan at Punchestown. And they were both on split screen. And I think this just allows a little bit more leeway for races to get out, get completed, and just to flow better. And I mean, I wrote down the opening 5 races across the 5 meetings on Saturday, and it does seem to flow quite well, because you have the 12:35 at Lingfield, which I'm 99% certain is a flat race, the 12:40 at Sandown, the 12:50 at Leopardstown, the 12:57 at Musselburgh, so 2 extra minutes there for Leopardstown to finish on, which I think might be a grade 1 as well, and then the 1:03 at Wetherby 6 minutes later. So in principle, maybe those extra 2 minutes of wiggle room will prove to be the difference, and maybe we are going to have to get used to Bellevue times.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it has been done is as well is good intention. You know, like you said, and I think then it's a case of, you know, races won't be overlapping. You know, so we won't have to miss anything. You know, so if that means that you've got to have a 12:57 at Musselburgh or whatever, and it gives you that couple of minutes. It doesn't just give you a couple of minutes for the race to go off. It gives you time for a bit of preview as well, doesn't it? So, you know, personally, I think it'll work, and I think people will be pleased to see it. So, if you're asking me, am I in favour? The answer is simply yes.
Common sense.
Common sense. Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. Right, then we need to do some previewing, don't we? Let's see what's happening at Sandown on Saturday. The Scilly Isles Novices Chase, the Grade 1, 2.5 miles. I've got the best odds on at the moment. Pim is the 7-2 market leader. Will the Pim land the hat-trick?
Well, he's done very little wrong so far, hasn't he? I mean, people who listen to this regularly be bored of us making the same quip every week. He's got famous colours to live up to because he's owned by Patricia Pugh, who owns Altior. But he's done very well so far this season. This will be his first try in graded company over fences after 2 really impressive efforts the last twice. I think the most interesting thing with Pim is the fact that he's been over 3 miles the last twice. He's shown plenty of stamina. This could be a bit too sharp for him over 2.5 miles for strong stayer. But that being said, he is capable of front running. If Sandown can be a testing track, perhaps if it comes up particularly testing and they let him go from the front, he might be a difficult one to catch.
Yeah, just thinking, stepping back down to 20 furlongs here when he ran at that at Huntingdon, didn't he? When he was second, and he was the beaten favourite on that occasion as well. That was last November. Fakir Dadair-Rees looks like it's coming over from Ireland for the Joseph O'Brien York. Currently one of the 4-1 joint second favourites with Good Boy Bobby. Did like his win. Very impressive in that Grade 1 at Fairyhouse over the festive period.
Yeah, we've just been slating English runners for not coming over to Ireland. The Irish are a bit more forthcoming. I will say that I know the vibes are that he's probably going to come over here, but he does have 2 entries at Leopard as well and the Dublin Race Festival. So you never know, really, do you, with these sorts of things? Plans can change. I think one thing in his favour or in the favour of Sandown is the fact that his conqueror at Leopardstown last time, Notebook, is entered in the Irish Arkle, so you'd think he would try and avoid that race. And yeah, he was a talented hurdler last year as a 4-year-old, a Grade 1 winner already, as you mentioned. Sam Crow was alongside, of course, and there was that big debate, would he or wouldn't he have gone past? He fell, so we never found that out. And Fakir Dadair-Rees did his job very, very well, won by an emphatic amount there. And yeah, he's got a real chance, and you'd have to give him every chance, certainly.
Mentioned Good Boy Bobby as well for the Nigel Twisted Davis shot in the Paul and Claire Rooney Silts comes into race after finishing second last time out at Cheltenham.
Imagine you like the name of this one, do you, Bobby?
Love it. Absolutely love it. I can remember backing him as well at Newbury. We mentioned the Betfair Hurdle, didn't we? That's where the Baddecky Rebel could turn up. I can remember backing him in that bumper, that listed bumper, when he was at third behind AC Milan. He's one of the 3-1 joint favourites that day. Had him on the nose, and he finished third on that occasion. But yes, I do like the name. Answer to your question.
You know what? At first glance, you'd think, why is Good Boy Bobby so prominent in the market? I mean, interestingly, the market's all over the place. I've got Odds Checker up, and some have him as favourite, some have Pim as favourite for Kia Dairies. No one quite knows yet who's going to go where and what the market's going to look like. But you'd look at first glance and see a horse who's had 3 starts over fences so far and has been beaten twice into second place, and you'd wonder why maybe he's so short. But it's because his form is working out really, really well. He finished second on debut at Carlisle back in October. He was behind Brewing Up a Storm, who's gone on to frank that 4-man sub. And he was in front of 2 as well in Midnight Shadow, who we will mention later, and Global Citizen, who have both gone on to win Grade 2 races. He's since also beaten Ravenhill Road, who's a decent novice in his own right. And he was just over a length behind a certain Mr. Fisher last time out when giving away £5. Mr. Fisher has, of course, gone on to win at Doncaster. So his form has got a lot of substance to it, even though he has ultimately been beaten twice. So, yeah, he's another one to consider here.
What's the likeliest winner, in your opinion?
Oh, it's really interesting. You've asked me a tricky question here. I think Itchy Feet is another one to consider. We haven't mentioned him. There's so many imponderables here because Itchy Feet has had one start of offences so far. He absolutely hosed up in a minor race, won by 20 odd lengths. But because we know how good he was over hurdles, there's loads to come from him yet. Lorena, whether she comes here, whether she goes to Leopardstown, this is her chance to prove herself at Grade 1 level. Midnight Shadow, 2 last time. Vision to Flow, like Itchy Feet, hosed up in a in a minor race last time. So there's lots of ifs and buts, but at this point, I'd probably go with your namesake.
Good boy, Bobby.
Good boy, Bobby. Yeah,
that's
real substance to that form.
I just checked on WhatsApp as well. Our producer Seb, who's just monitoring the show here, doing all the production. He says, "I've thrown you under a bus there when I asked you what you thought the likeliest." And he's put an emoji crying with laughter face there. Now we are going to look ahead to obviously what's happening at Leopardstown as well. So I'll just get this up onto my screen now. For this Saturday, we're just going to have a brief look at the Irish Champion Hurdle going off at 3:10 on Saturday afternoon. And I'll tell you what, if the vast majority turn up in this, it's going to be an absolute beaut of the race. But the big question will be, will a certain Honeysuckle, the Henry de Bromhead mare, will she remain to be undefeated? That is the very big question. And what I will say is that she's been mightily, and I mean mightily, impressive so far.
Yeah, she's done absolutely nothing wrong so far, has she? I mean, she's 6 out of 6 now over hurdles, and her last performance was her best yet in the Hatton's Grace. She couldn't have been more emphatic there, you know. Took a few notable scalps in the likes of Bacardi's, Apples Jade, Kalata Vic, Penhill. These are all proven Grade 1 performers, and she routed the field. The bus just rolls on with her. The interesting thing here is that the majority of her form has come over 2.5 miles. So she steps back to 2 miles here. I don't think it'll be an issue. She's got plenty of speed in her locker. The form is the strongest on offer. She's 6-4, 11-8. She's very much the one to beat. And I wonder whether this will be the performance that decides for her whether she goes for the Champion Hurdle at Cheltenham, because that's an option for her. She's entered in that, or whether they decide to put her in the Mare's Hurdle instead.
Just looking at just briefly some of her rivals as well. You have got Sharjah for Willie Mullins, of course, from the Matheson Hurdle, the Grade 1 last time out. So you've also got a certain Classical Dream, who, looked, the one. You'd have to say the absolute one to beat in the Champion Hurdle this year, but it's not quite gone according to plan for him so far, has it?
No, it hasn't. And maybe he still has time to prove himself. Of course, he could do no wrong last season. The 3 Grade 1 wins on the spin. The Supreme winner went on to follow up at Punchestown, and then, he had excuses in the Moriana, and last time just never really got going, did he? He made a bit of a bad error, and this is the time now. I mean, he's running out of second chances. On form, he's got a very, very good chance. If he ran to his peak form, he would give even Honeysuckle something to think about. But if he flops here, he would have an awful lot to prove in the Champion Hurdle.
The Irish Gold Cup is one of the highlights on the Sunday at Leopardstown. As it stands at the moment, there's 15 going to post. I doubt that very much, Nick. What do you think?
Yeah, it would be really good if 15 ran. I wouldn't imagine so, considering that only 4 turned up last year when Bells Hill won. But that being said, I think if 8 or 9 turned up here, with all the protagonists in Ken Boy and Delta Work, it would be a really good race. I will say though, Seb mentioned you threw me under the bus a couple of minutes ago. I'm going to throw you under the bus now.
Go on then.
Because this race was established in 1987. And only one horse this century has won both the Irish Gold Cup and the Gold Cup in the same year. Very recently, actually. Do you know who it is?
Say that again, sorry.
One horse this century has won the Irish Gold Cup and the Gold Cup in the same season.
In the same season?
Yes.
Right. Very recently?
Yes, and runs potentially on Sunday.
Oh. Sizing John?
Yes, Sizing John. And I won't ask you the other two because I think they're before my time. I think they are before your time as well.
Is this what used to be the Irish Hennessy, by the way?
Oh, Wikipedia didn't tell me that much. I don't know. My knowledge doesn't go back that far. But the only other 2 horses to win this race and the Gold Cup, and I'll leave a couple of second gap in case anybody knows who's listening, is Jadami in 1993 and Imperial Call in 1996. They with Sizing John.
What's sufficient about Jadami in 1993? What record does he hold?
I don't know. I was born in 92.
Was you? He was the last Northern trained horse of the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
Oh, really? Interesting. Went over to Ireland then as well.
Yeah. We've not had one since, unfortunately.
There you go.
Yeah. So we've got some drought now. I think it's about time we.
Top Bill Ben.
Yeah, we need Michael Dickinson to come back over from America and get training some jumpers again. Right, let's have a look into this Irish Gold Cup. At the time of recording, 74 joint favourites. Delta Work and Ken Boy. Out of those 2, what would you say would be one for you?
Personally, I would be very, very strong on Ken Boy. I think he can be forgiven his run over Christmas. I thought there was an awful lot to like about it because considering that the time he'd had off the track, the ownership issues that were pretty much out of his hand, so he came back on reappearance pretty late in the day, late December in the Savills Chase, and got within 3-4 lengths of Delta Work, who was something of a minor surprise. I mean, he certainly wasn't in the betting. He was well thought of. He was 11-2, but on form, he perhaps had a little bit to find with Ken Boy. But, I mean, he was all but faultless last season. His only blot on his copy was when on seating in the Gold Cup very, very early on. He was a 3-time Grade 1 winner. He obliterated the field in the Savills Chase last season. And you just wonder if he's back to his best now with that run under his belt. If he's allowed to have things his own way from the front. He'll be very, very hard to beat. Is that your cat, Bobby?
Yeah, this is Sky. This is one of our cats. She just wanted to make a very quick appearance. That's it. Gets tangled up in all the wire. Oh no, she's coming back. She's coming. Are you all right there? So we're not recording or anything, Sky. So yeah, one of them's out at the moment, and the other one is that's you. Just jump down. There we go. Yeah, one of them's out at the moment, and Sky just wanted to make an appearance. So I was always wary about if one of the cats or both the cats was in, and I think so far we've recorded this week on week, and the cats have been fine. And on this occasion, Sky wanted to make an appearance. That was Sky, by the way. If I didn't tell you.
Yeah, it's Riley 1, Sky 1 now, isn't it? For impromptu appearances.
Yeah, of course, Riley, one of the early episodes. Right then, presenting Percy, of course, really well fancied last year for the Cheltenham Gold Cup. He's just had the 2 runs so far this season, finishing 3rd and 5th respectively.
Yeah, I will very quickly before we go on presenting Percy. Before Sky made the appearance, I was going to say about Delta Work is that
sorry,
as impressive that his Savills Chase victory was, the proximity of the likes of Monolly means he's probably got something to prove here. And he had two behind him in Kenboy and Presenting Percy, who are going to strip fitter this time around. Presenting Percy, has, as you say, has had 2 runs so far this season, and he's got a huge reputation. I mean, he was favoured for the Gold Cup, wasn't he, last year? So it's sort of getting to the time now where we're going to need to see something from him. He's another that, to use a coin a phrase I use all the time, he's building up to something. He shaped well over an inadequate trip in the John Durkan at the beginning of December. He then ran, I thought, pretty well last time out in the Savills Chase. So he comes here, you'd think, stripping fitter. We know that he's capable of top-class form. What I will say is the progression needs to come now from him. But at 9-2, there's plenty of juice in that price if he runs to form.
Yeah, Presenting Percy at 9-2. Just because I'm conscious of time as well, Nick, what are the other horses that, in your opinion, are the leading contenders ahead of the Irish Gold Cup?
Well, we've got to give Sizing John a shout, haven't we? Because he is very much forgotten about. He's the reigning Gold Cup winner. What is that? Can you hear that car horn?
Okay, is that what it is? Is that a car horn? I thought it was your phone.
No, it's an alarm or a car horn. I'm still in the office, so we're past 10 o'clock now. And
so we've had Sky make an appearance. We've now got a car horn in the background. This is entertainment at its best, isn't it?
I know someone's going to break into the office soon, aren't they? But yeah, Sizing John, 2017 Gold Cup hero. Haven't seen an awful lot of him since. We can write off his run in 2017 when he finished down the field. He clearly wasn't right. And shaped really well in reappearance over hurdles. Unlucky to fall when he did. He was going well when he fell. He's got the talent. We know he's got the talent to get involved. It'll be interesting to see how far along he's coming with his rehabilitation. Chris's Dream, never really quite fired a Grade 1 company as a novice, but was an emphatic winner of the Troy Town. When a horse wins a handicap as well as he did, particularly a competitive handicap, you've got to think about that. And I tell you what, I wouldn't write off Bells Hill either, last year's winner. He's another perhaps that has underwhelmed a little bit at Grade 1 level, but he has always threatened to be a Grade 1 performer. He is capable of it on his day. Stranger things have happened. And maybe even Labago Ra. She won at this meeting last year in the Flogus. She was below form on her first 2 outings, but was back towards her best last time out in that absolute humdinger of a race behind Lady Buttons and Happy Diva at Doncaster. 33-1 does seem quite rude if she runs to her ability. I
think she's a cracking each way, and I hope they get, obviously over the 8 runners, so we get that 3rd place. But I think personally at 33-1, I will say I think she's the each way better the race. I think she's a huge price, to be honest with you. And that race you just mentioned as well, at Doncaster, that is probably a contender for probably race of the season, and that's without what we've seen so far, obviously at Cheltenham and Aintree, with those just yet to come. Right then, that's the end of the podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, where you can see myself and also see Nick as well. Also, don't forget you can listen to the audio on your Apple Music, your SoundCloud, your Spotify, etc. You can get us on there every single week talking about jumps racing. What I can also tell you as well, just very, very quickly, we mentioned last week there was tickets to give away to Cheltenham. That was for day 1. We've actually got the winner, and I've been reliably informed as well that very shortly horseracing.net will be giving away tickets for day 2, which of course the highlights is the Champion Chase, amongst other races as well. So if you want to be in a chance with winning those tickets and going to Cheltenham for the 2nd day of the festival, make sure you follow at horseracing_net, and make sure you look out for those competitions. But you must follow the Twitter account as well to be in with a chance. But for myself, Bobby Beavers, alongside Nick Shannon, pleasure to talk with you as always, Nick, and we will see everybody next week, won't we?
We will. Pleasure as always, Bobby. Catch you in a week.
See you later, everyone. Catch you very soon.